Alright, so I've been posting a lot of content recently, and honestly, there are actually some games I haven't really talked about. Now, of course, on my channel started to really blow up when we started talking about a lot of Armor Core. You remember that game? Armor Core is pretty fun. Armor Core 6, Fires Rubicon, still one of the best, I guess you can say, mech games around for sure. Of course, there was also Gundam Breaker that came out. That was also exciting. I really like that one. Of course, there's another game coming out called Mecha Break. Mecha Break is pretty fun. Now, I can't tell you too much because I've played a little bit of the beta already, and they probably had a bunch of betas already. And of course, they did have a, I guess, alpha test for a little bit, so everyone got a chance to play. So that was a ton of fun. I can't tell you much, but I can say this: it's gonna be a great, great game. Like I can see the efforts they've been putting into it. It's gonna be really good. So now there's another game I want to get into, and it's called Virtual-on. So you're probably wondering what a virtual-on is, or you might have heard of it if you're a millennial or even a boomer. So, virtual-on is also known as Cyber Troopers. Virtual-on is a series of the arcade console mech combat games developed by Sega. So, pretty much they made about 3 to 4 games. The 1990s where it actually started. So this came out a little bit after, I believe, the Gundam series. So the series begins with Virtual-on Cyber Troopers in the arcades, which was one of the first games to use the dual joysticks for controllers, allowing players to maneuver their mechs called Virtroids or VRs in 3D space and intuitive control. This game was later ported to the Sega Saturn under the name Virtual-on Cyber Troopers in Japan or Cyber Troopers Virtual-on in North America. So they're very different. And of course, this game was beyond its time. Like Sega really knew what they were doing, especially with the online playing, the graphics, and their memory cards were super cool. They had some really cool ideas, but with Virtual-on or Ontario Tangram, which is the one I grew up with, and this is when I was like maybe I don't know, 10 years old, 8 years old, something like that. I forgot how old I was. But they introduced a lot of new Virtuoids, more special abilities, combat systems, and I like how every game, and I know it was the one who created Juri, he was always trying to find a new way for complex systems for each game. So it wasn't always the same. They always change it up each game. But I believe Virtual Tangram was personally my favorite, and I think it's the most balanced one, to be honest. But it was great. It was a great game. Came on the Dreamcast and definitely in the arcades. I used to play as a kid. I was really obsessed with it. I was like, man, I wish there was more Virtual-on. Luckily, in the 2000s, they did. They came out with Virtual-on Force, which I'd never heard about, and obviously it was in some regions, so I couldn't really play it because obviously, it was mainly a Japanese game, and Japan loved the Virtual-on. Like, you should have seen the advertising. It was just amazing. So Virtual-on Force was that game where they also changed the combat, and for some reason it felt kind of like meh. And I guess what I mean by that is that the the combat was very very different. Now this leads to Virtual-on Mars, which was released in PS2, PlayStation 2 in the 2003. Now this was a bittersweet game, but this is the game I do want to talk about for sure. So this was a game that I really, really enjoyed, and honestly, I'm actually the few people that really like the game. But this game came out in 2003, and as a kid, I was so excited to play this game, and I really, really wanted to play this game. Like I would literally go to my game store like every single day and ask, "Hey, is it out yet? Is it coming? Is it coming?" And I'm like, "I'll be the first one, right?" I was really, really like excited to play this game, and to the point where like I just waited each day, kept asking. So when the game finally came out, it wasn't dubbed, and it was just fine because this is North America. So this was actually the few times where Virtual-on actually came out, specifically released for America. So it was really different for the one in Japan because, of course, the one in Japan is always tends to be better just because the voice acting is a lot better, and also you get a little more better things, such as lore, which they offered. But Virtual-on Mars was that game where they really tried to make a good story out of it. And again, I know they were just trying their best. And of course, it was 2003, and what do you expect during that time? That was like the time during Shinobi was out, PS2. Um, I truly believe, though, if Virtual-on Mars did come out during during this time, I think they would have had a better chance. But unfortunately, the last game we got was in 2018. But in the meantime, Virtual-on Mars is a very underrated game. Now, if you're looking for something where they have a mode called Dramatic Mode, which basically is a story mode for the game. Now, of course, it's going to be your typical soldier game when like it's kind of like, oh whoa, just follow your orders, and the plot is kind of weird, and it's like it doesn't really do it justice. Like there's a lot of sussy things that happen. You're like playing the game and they don't really explain a lot. You kind of just have to know the lore, and which is when you have to do research and like kind of go into getting like the manual book or something like that, or stuff like that basically. But the voice acting is pretty dang good for what it is. If you want to hear something really funny, I can show you who the voice is. Momonosuke from One Piece.
バラの三姉妹筆頭シルビー・ファング同じくデボラ・バイト
ジェニファー・ポイズンです。
そうあなたがお客様。
気をつけろ。こいつらは悪病高い毒蛇三姉妹だ。
おだまりマースの犬。なんですって。あら。
Now, I will say this about the game. The game is very repetitive. You're probably going through missions that literally do the same thing. You fight the same people, same map, or the different level, but with the same format map. So everything is pretty repetitive, but obviously there's some creativity where you kind of actually have to travel and like move around, don't fall down, which is kind of a hassle. It's kind of annoying. And the voice acting is fine, but the English dub is a little cringe. If you listen to like the final boss or like the bad guy, the villain sounds like some kind of evil, like I don't know, like cartoon kind of Disney character. Is kind of weird. But overall, again, like I said, the game is pretty dang good for what it is. It's very underrated. Like I would play the game. It's very fun to, sometimes play over and over again, even though it is repetitive. But Virtual-on Mars is that very, underrated hidden gem game that if you are a mech fan, I highly recommend at least playing once. But again, if that's not your feel, well, you can always just play the original Virtual-on Master Collection, which they also have, which is great. You can get that technically. If you have a PS4, you can just get a Japanese account and play that. But if you really want, you can also try playing Certain Magical Virtual-on, which is a very interesting one. I think it's okay. I don't think it's that great. I don't think anyone really talks about it too much. But if you would just want to play a classic Virtual-on game, the Master Collection is definitely for you. No, it is sad that the Virtual-on Mars series didn't make it to the Master Collection. It's not really a Master Collection if you don't have all the games, But again, this was a game that I did really enjoy. Really, really enjoyed the Virtual-on Mars series. So if you haven't a chance to play it, I highly recommend playing it, just so you can get that full experience in playing the game. Now, I know I was kind of rambling off on a lot of things, but again, I guess the moral of the story is, if you are a mech fan and if you really enjoy robots, well, play the Virtual-on series. I think you should give it a chance. It's a lot of fun, and honestly, you won't be disappointed. And again, it's a great game. It's a great game, So definitely check it out and let me know what your thoughts are. All right, well, I guess that's pretty much it for the most part. I went my little rambling off on Virtual-on because it's a game I really love, and I am going to Japan this summer, or spring technically. So I hope to get to see the Temjin statue, which is somewhere in Tokyo. So anyways, if you want to play a game again, just play Virtual-on if you like mech games. I give it a chance. It's a lot of fun. I believe it's Maximilian Dude approved, so you should definitely check it out. Okay, bye.
Hey, I was watching that.